the Labour leader in Scotland, Wendy Alexander, has resigned. She was a close political ally of the Prime Minister, although they did have different views about her decision to challenge the SNP to hold a referendum on independence. Our political correspondent, Alicia McCarthy, has been in the studio with me throughout that statement and the comments we've had afterwards, and particularly those comments now about Labour being left in disarray. Where does that leave Gordon Brown?
This is going to be a big blow for Gordon Brown. There's no two ways about it. Wendy Alexander in her statement there was saying that the comments about her expenses and so on, the comments about her donations have been a distraction. This is going to be a bigger distraction, at least in the short and medium term, because over the summer now we are going to have this competition to try and find a new leader to fill that hole. And Wendy Alexander insisting that she had acted in good faith, that she really hadn't meant to do anything wrong at all, but had been badly advised. But the fact of the matter is that the headlines in the newspapers in the next few days are still going to say, you know, leader in the Scottish Parliament resigns in donations row.
No, and the by-election coming up in East Glasgow as well, and that's not the sort of headlines they want going into something like that.
No, absolutely not. And as one or two of you, the people who've just appeared on the programme have been saying, up until a few months ago, you would have said that Glasgow East, David Marshall's seat, was as safe as houses. But following Crewe and Nantwich and the results that we've seen recently, and given Labour's standing in the opinion polls, it's not impossible to think that that seat might go to the SNP, and Wendy Alexander's resignation isn't going to help that at all.
What would Westminster now be wanting to see coming out of London? I mean, what would make, out of Scotland, what would make Gordon Brown feel a little easier, do you think?
I think what he would really like to see would presumably be very swift competition, an open contest, because Wendy Alexander was elected.
So no coronation?
I think that might be better, given what has happened with Wendy Alexander, if there is a brief contest and a clear result, and then for the party to move on as quickly as possible. Don't forget the real battle, as far as Labour is concerned, is fighting with the SNP, who've been leading the administration up there for around a year now, and by all accounts seem to be doing quite well. So this is the real battle for Labour, and they're going to want to get back to that as quickly as possible.
And no more infighting over a referendum or not.
Absolutely. I mean, this was the big divide between Wendy Alexander and Gordon Brown. Wendy Alexander coming out with these comments that she wanted a referendum, bring it on as soon as possible. That was very much a division with Gordon Brown, and that caused some considerable conflict.
And in fact, she's quite friendly with Gordon Brown as well.
Well, they are believed to be close, and you have to bear in mind that her brother, Douglas Alexander, is in Gordon Brown's cabinet as the International Development Secretary. So yes, there is a relationship there. But there has been tension over that.
During her press conference there, she put a lot of the blame firmly at the door of the SNP, talking about a partisan decision, and also that they put political victory ahead of the Parliament as a whole. What did you make of those comments?
Well, I think it shows you first and foremost that there is absolutely no love lost at all between Labour and the SNP. I mean, the dislike between them was quite obvious with those comments. But I think, you know, they will be pursuing this. This is what you'll be hearing from Labour, is that this was a vindictive act, if you like, and that the pursuit of this and what Labour will consider to be the hounding of Wendy Alexander was very unfair. Now, the SNP, I don't doubt, will be saying, we were simply going by the rules, there seemed to have been a breach, we pursued that, what else would you expect us to do?
And she didn't want this to hang over the summer, obviously.
No, because as I mentioned earlier, the Scottish Parliament has now gone into recess, so all the MSPs are now going to be away from Edinburgh until the beginning of September. So you've got a very long period of time where this could have rumbled on, and I think that was her point about it being a distraction. There was an awful lot of time for things to appear in newspapers, for enormous amounts of speculation. Would she stay? Would she go? Those kind of things. So she really wanted to bring that to a close.
Okay, Alicia, thanks very much indeed for that. Well, coming back to join is Professor John Curtis, who's Professor of Politics at Strathclyde University. He joins me from our Glasgow studio. So dust settling a little bit, and I suppose we look now to the future for Labour in Scotland.
We do. I mean, there's a short-term question there and there's a longer-term question. The short-term question is, of course, the fact the Labour Party in Scotland now faces this rather awkward by-election in Glasgow East, where we'll probably have to do so in the immediate wake of a leadership campaign for the party in Scotland. And of course also the timing is such that even if David Marshall were to resign now, the Labour Party can't hold this by-election terribly quickly. Bear in mind that July is the principal holiday month in Scotland, not August, so it's inconceivable you're going to hold the by-election in July. So in truth it may now have to be wait until the end of August or early September, giving the SNP plenty of time to dig into the constituency. But the longer-term issue that's raised by Wendy Alexander's resignation, which is something that Ian McWhirter was talking about a bit earlier, is whether or not her very clear attempt to, as it were, put much more tartan onto the Labour Party's image in Scotland, a much more nationalist direction, a direction in which the party was willing to come up with ideas that put the party at some distance from the party at Westminster, whether or not that momentum will be maintained. Now, I've been amongst those who've been arguing the Labour Party has to do that in Scotland, because in Scottish Parliament elections the Labour Party's hitherto its tactics of fighting the election saying, well, vote Labour for a strong partnership with Westminster has been disadvantageous in Scottish Parliament elections, where voters seem to want a party that's willing to put Scotland's interests first, and that, in my view, is part of the reasons for the SNP's success last year. Now, whether or not her successor will or will not be willing to maintain that direction, we'll have to see. But certainly I think some of the candidates who might stand are known to be perhaps people who had a certain amount of doubt about the direction in which Wendy Alexander was taking the party.
Okay.